Hey now, it's Brace for Impact, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm going solo, well not asked, but it's still the same. We're talking TNA wrestling, and man, there is not a lot to talk about this week. typically, typically I have a full show like loaded and ready to go with tons of news stories and tons of topics, and there wasn't really like many like breaking news stories this week. It's been kind of a slow news week, and that's okay. I did think we had a fun episode to talk about this week, and I'll get into the episode here in a little bit. Um, and then I went ahead and opened this up for everybody. This is typically a Patreon only show when I go live on Saturday mornings. What I'll do is I'll go live on YouTube, but I'll unlist it and then I'll just put it over into Patreon, and I'll put it in the link into Patreon, and then the Patreon subscribers come in and check it out. But this is kind of a free preview, so if you just happen to stop by while I'm live, you want to hop in the comments, feel free, throw down a comment and get my attention, and we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Because like I said, not a ton of news this week, but it should still be a fun show regardless. But I've been covering the Rebellion news every single week, and I am going to go ahead and do that again this week. And it is not looking great. So if you guys came here thinking that I was going to drop some big time numbers on you, which I have not seen get aggregated yet, so I think I might be the first guy talking about this. But so let's go here to the Wrestling Observer. Uncle Dave is really the only guy that covers that still covers like pay-per-view numbers in depth. So it's right here in his TNA section, which sometimes he doesn't even have one, but he has one this week. Rebellion is now at 1,860 buys. Guys, that is television buys. Okay, and he should have put television buys, because damn well someone's going to get confused and think that he's lying again. Or I don't lying is a strong word. They're going to think that he is making stuff up, which is just not true. Not true. But Rebellion now at 1,860 television buys. It's now down 85.9% from the same period after Hard to Kill. So I think 2 weeks after, 2 or 3 weeks later, that's the number that he's comparing it to, not the end result number, not the 60-day out number, not the 22,000 number, just whatever it was about 2-3 weeks out. That's what he's comparing it to. So it's not tracking very well compared. I mean, we knew that it wasn't going to be close to Hard to Kill, but you would hope that it wouldn't be as down as it is, but it's down pretty far. Last week I think they were about 60% down from Hard to Kill, from the same time period out, like 10 days. And this week they're down to 85.9%. And it doesn't look like it's going to get, I was thinking that they would get to about 3 or about like 4,000 total television pay-per-view buys when it was all said and done, to get them up to like about 10,000 total. But it doesn't look like we're going to get there. I could be wrong. But it's not looking good for them, unless something just happens, or unless like another like pay-per-view system that he wasn't tracking came through with some numbers, and then that could jump it up, and that does happen sometimes. But yeah. So that's the Rebellion update. I'm not going to go too much on Rebellion. I've talked about it too much during the weeks here. But I thought this story was pretty big. And maybe I should have made this the top story, but we'll go ahead and get into it. It says right here, Mike Bailey has noted that his contract expires this year. Bailey, for the past 3 years, has had somewhat quietly many great matches, as almost as anyone in wrestling. But hold on here. But he's got a major push here. He's a good indie attraction. He did great last year's Super Junior tournament in New Japan, but isn't in this year's tournament. So yeah, Mike Bailey, he is done at the end of the year. He noted, I believe he told Fightful in an interview there, that his contract is expiring at the end of the year. And, while I think it would be awesome for TNA to be able to retain him, I just think that he's just got too many friends in AEW. He's a bit of an indie darling, and he works that style. I think that they would love to have him. And it's pretty clear that TNA is never going to make him their top guy, nor should they. I just don't think that he would work as the top guy here. And I'm a big fan of his. some of my favorite TNA matches ever involve Mike Bailey. Like, of course, the Will Ospreay match. He did a 1-hour match with Josh Alexander. I wasn't as high on it as everybody else, but I thought that was pretty good. At Against All Odds a couple years ago, he had a really good match with Trey Miguel that I thought was awesome. But I think one of my favorite matches that he ever did in TNA was the Kenny King match in Atlanta, where they just took down all the ropes and they did kind of a blood sport match. And that was the first time where I was like, okay, Mike Bailey has got some fire to him. Bailey has a little bit of character to him. And that was the one thing that was missing, is like, can Mike Bailey get mad? We just never seen it. And in that match, I think Kenny King was able to get the best out of Bailey, both in the ring and in character work. I thought Kenny King did a great job. And we just have not seen much of that since then. While I hate the name Speedball Mountain, him and Trent Seven have quietly put on a string of some very good matches, to include the match at Rebellion, which I think a lot of people thought that was the match of the night, with Speedball Mountain versus the System. And I really enjoyed that match too. They've put on some really good performances, but it looks like that team is going to be no more here pretty soon. And then, of course, at Under Siege, they had another really good match, a trios match. But yeah, he has had a really good run here in TNA. He wasn't even allowed to work in the States for a long time because I think he violated a work visa. There was like a work visa issue there. So sometimes Canadian wrestlers are able to come across the border, and if they don't get the proper paperwork and they get caught working, and then they get in trouble. And I think he got banned for like 5 years, which really put a damper on his career, because at that time he was, I think just about every company was interested in him. He was a young guy making a lot of noise, having great matches. And he might have been an NXT guy. And here, actually, Joseph G, my cousin in the chat, says he was set to sign with NXT right before they made the switch to 2.0 and decided against indie guys. I did hear some rumblings that they were interested in him around that time. Now, I don't know if they didn't sign him because of that or what. I know that AEW might have also been interested, but TNA really made a hard push for him, and they actually sponsored his work visa. And that's why he's been able to have the run that he's been able to have on the indie scene in the States, is because TNA sponsored his work visa. And look, he's had a really good run in TNA, and I'm a big fan of his. I know a couple weeks ago I was pretty tough on him, and I wasn't really trying to be tough on him. I was trying to be tough on the people that were really coming at TNA for the way that they're using him, and specifically being in the main event of Under Siege in a tag match with Matt Hardy. A main event for a premium live event with broken Matt Hardy. That's what people got so upset about. And I was just like, guys, and he actually was wearing like the broken Hardy jacket and stuff like that, which Matt Hardy revealed was actually their idea, and they were excited to do it. It was just like a couple of creeps online were getting super mad about it. I'm just like, God, you guys are ridiculous. You guys are pretending that broken Matt wasn't one of the most over guys in TNA history, which is why he's doing this nostalgia run. That's all that it is. And they were having fun with it. And then the match turned out to be awesome. The match was really freaking good. If you have not seen the Under Siege match, I implore you to go check it out if you're already a TNA Plus subscriber, or you subscribe to their YouTube, or you're capable of stealing stuff online, which I would never personally do. Yes, I would. But I would implore you to go check it out and judge for yourself. Like, it was a fun match. Like, Matt Hardy wasn't moving around so well, but what they did with him worked. And a big reason why the match was so great, Matt Hardy was freaking over, of course, that broken Matt, and Speedball is awesome. Every match he's ever been in has been like really good to awesome. And he is one of the top guys out there. I would love for TNA to re-sign him. I think they're going to have a hard time doing that. But look, I've been wrong before. I thought Macklin was out the door, man. I really did. And honestly, I thought Ace Austin was going to be gone too. And I think NXT, if they did not make a play for Ace Austin, they're fools. Because Ace is so freaking good, and I get the feeling that they're about to get behind him, right in TNA right now, with what they're setting up, as far as angle wise and all that stuff. I think they really are about to get behind him. And if AEW and NXT decided not to make a play for Ace Austin, a young guy like that with all the charisma and the ability in the matches that he's been able to have, like I think they're ridiculous. They're just missing out. It's good news for TNA that they did that. So, but anyway, back to Speedball. I thought Macklin was out. I thought Ace Austin was going to be out. I thought lots of guys were not coming back, and they have stayed. So I would not be like completely shocked if they were able to sign him, but like he is, as far as in-ring ability, he is next level. Him and Josh Alexander are really the two guys that are still capable of kind of like, breaking that 5-star scale for TNA. And they're the last two to do it, right? Of course, in matches with Will Ospreay. But I think Tony Khan, as soon as he sees, if you did watch the match of Will Ospreay and Speedball, and if you've seen a lot of his other stuff and all of his WrestleMania weekend stuff, I think he's going to want to have that guy. Now, if AEW does bring him in, and that would be my prediction. I just don't see NXT bringing him in, but I could be wrong. If he did come in, he's not going to be their world champion. He's not going to be the global champion of the continent. Like, so all these people that are like getting mad at TNA for not booking Speedball properly, even though he was just in the main event, even though at Rebellion he was in a tag team title match that was not the co-main event, but it was like right below the co-main event. And even though coming up at Against All Odds, it looks like Speedball is more than likely going to be challenging for the X Division title, and then he's probably going to be in a prime position at Slammiversary, either in the main event or the co-main event because they're in Montreal. He's never going to get to that level in AEW, and that has more to do with the fact that AEW is so stacked. But he's going to be another guy like Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong and a lot of these other cats, Takeshita, and other cats that are going to come in and they're going to have really good matches and they're going to lose to the big name guys. Now, I know I mentioned Roderick Strong and currently holds a title, but that is such a nothing title, and he's getting ready to have the Ospreay match. I kind of see Speedball kind of below that level, and I can see Speedball doing a lot of stuff in Ring of Honor too, like being on those Ring of Honor pay-per-views, having really good match. Like I could see like the co-main event of a Ring of Honor show being Kyle Fletcher versus Speedball, and then them having 4.5, 5, 6 stars, whatever you want to call it. Which I'm going to get into a little bit because Kenny Omega was kind of making fun of that, which I found to be hilarious. But yeah, I don't see him kind of breaking through this. But that's fine. Like there are certain guys that are at certain levels and that's where they belong. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. He's a hell of a talent. Great, great talent. He is just what he is. And what he is amazing. And so I hope the best for him. I wish the best for him. I got Terrence Sullivan in the chat. He said, damn, Rebellion won't even get to 10,000 total pay-per-view buys. Yeah, look, man, I was trying to tell you guys heading into Rebellion, I think a lot of TNA fans got blinders on because they love the product so much. But I follow like the buzz of the company and what people are saying and things like that. I kind of listen to the outside noise, and I could tell that this was going to kind of go back to the level that they're typically at. And right now where they're at is where they're typically at. 1,800 buys on television, which would put them, a little over 5,000 total. That tracks for what they typically do. And Rebellion is like 4 of 4, meaning, they always say that the biggest one of the year is Bound for Glory, but let's be honest, the biggest pay-per-view of the year every year since I have been covering the company since 2018 has been Slammiversary. It's always done the most buys. And the second has been Bound for Glory. And then I would say since introducing Kenny Omega on that first big Hard to Kill and them like kind of resetting their company every year at Hard to Kill has been a pretty big pay-per-view for them. And then number 4 has been Rebellion. And they treated it as such. They did not promote it very well. They put it in the Palms, which is a great venue. I love it. It's my favorite venue that they currently run, but the card was not marquee. And the main event, while I really like both wrestlers, didn't really do anything to get people talking, didn't really do anything to earn the money of the people that are typically willing to buy the show. It just didn't. And I think a big issue going into it is really the lack of knockout present, like marquee knockout presence. They had Steph DeLander, who's not a star, done some good stuff on the indie. She's not like very good in the ring, and we saw that during the match, where like the match was okay, but they had to have all the bells and whistles and all the lights out and the interferences and stuff like that to make it somewhat exciting. And it's because she's just not there's a reason why she just didn't make it in WWE, despite the fact that she's like almost a 6 foot, like she's like 5'8" and Aussie and got a great look and all that stuff. Has some charisma, but she just never made it there, right? And she's kind of toiling around on the indies. So, but yeah, a lack of marquee knockout presence, which is signature for the company. And so I think they had a lot, going against them heading into Rebellion. And they tried to incorporate the celebrity stuff like in the coming hours, but unfortunately, like a lot of the celebrities that they were talking about, nobody knows who they are. I know who Lars Fredrickson is. I'm a huge fan, but to the average person, like, it's not a big deal. And nobody's going to buy a pay-per-view because Lars Fredrickson's on the pre-show, right? And then of course they had the guy who I thought was an actual DJ, DJ whatever, who was the guitar player for 6 a.m. and I think he used to play backup guitar for Slash and Guns N' Roses. But like that's not going to get people talking. And then they had some TikTokers come out with AJ Francis that I personally like. A lot of TNA's fans are my age. They're like 30, 35 to 50. There's some that are in their 20s, like Andre is like 22. But for the most part, they're like me. They're like, mid 30s to like 40s. Been watching TNA a long time. They didn't really get anybody that we know. And I knew Sean Merriman. BQ didn't even know who Sean Merriman was, and he played for the Chargers. But as soon as I saw Sean Merriman in the crowd, I was like, oh shit, that's Sean Merriman. And I thought that was pretty cool. But that wasn't announced ahead of time, So while I thought Rebellion was actually probably better than Hard to Kill, I knew that it wasn't gonna track very well. But yeah, so Josh Alexander. So bad news for the company. Josh Alexander wrote that he has had to pull out all of his indie dates for the rest of the month of May. He said, "I'm not injured. It's all precautionary. I've been dealing with some personal health issues that leave me in constant pain. I'll deal with it, and I'll be back as soon as possible. Hopefully this will only be." He's hopeful that it'll only be a few weeks. So it looks like he's going to be missing the upcoming tapings in Cincinnati, which is a shame because I think that he's probably going to be the main event of Slammiversary. So good that he's taking time off now. I hope he heals up. And he is back for the Philly tapings, which would then lead into Slammiversary in July. So I think the Philly tapings are coming up like a couple weeks after Against All Odds in June. And then that should take us right into Slammiversary. And I fully believe that the main event of Slammiversary is going to be Moose versus Josh Alexander. In fact, Josh beat Frankie Kazarian in that street fight, and he's the number one contender. But it very much looks like we're going to get to Matt Hardy versus Moose at Against All Odds. That's what it looks like to me. I don't know that for a fact. I just think that it might be true. So hopefully he comes back. We can get it back. In fact, he did pull out of his dates. Like he was supposed to wrestle Shelton Benjamin, I think, coming up this weekend. And that one fell through, and that would have been I would have probably tried to find that one. So the Under Siege special on May 3rd. They did a TV taping on May 4th in Albany. So the first night drew about 450 fans, and then 300 the second night. Why do they keep going back to Albany? So, they I think for the pay-per-view they almost tripled in Vegas, and the tapings was like 2.5 times the tapings. So in Vegas, and then they go to Albany, and they drew 450 fans the first night, and then 300 the second night. It's not like, and I'll be like, I'm not shocked. The funny thing is that the first night the fans were pretty lively. They were crazy, man. They had a they made a lot of noise. They were into everything, and that building, like, you could probably get you can get a few thousand in that building, but to get 450 is pretty wild. But the way they set it up and the way they lit it and everything, it made it seem like there was a lot more people there, and it's because the people were super into everything. But then the second night was just like all the typical guys that go every time. In fact, there was one moment during the Speedball Mountain ABC match, the main event, where it was like 4 guys trying to get a chant going, like a dueling chant of Speedball Mountain ABC, Speedball Mountain, and like nobody joined them because they're like half asleep. That was rough, and I knew that the tapings were going to be rough. Like, I called that one because when they were there for Bound for Glory a couple years ago, and like Bobby Fish was like their big attraction because I think he's from Albany, although he probably lives in like Texas or something. But they brought in Bobby Fish for it, and nobody cared. In fact, he got CM Punk chants while he was there. And the next night was the Where's the Lie, the infamous Where's the Lie, where he's just talking into an abyss of darkness and just very few shadows of people in the audience, and like the same crew that goes to every show, like in the front row. That's all you could see, and nobody cares. It's tough, man, super tough. So I think next time someone brings up the idea of going to Albany, they should rethink the strategy, because they're just not drawing in Albany. It's just not happening. Alex Hammerstone was not medically cleared to wrestle Rich Swann at Under Siege. I talked about that. But he appears to be coming back soon. He's going to be at the Kentucky tapings. At least he took to Twitter and said that he would be. He took to Twitter and said that he would be. So I hope that that's the case. I hope that he is there, he is available, and he is back. I wonder what they're going to do with him, because I was really interested to see him and Jake Something in a match, and then it falls through. And now Jake Something's kind of moved on to something else. I wonder if when Hammerstone gets back, if they're going to keep that going. I don't know. All right, let's go to the chat. Joseph G says, has Leon Slater been doing much there yet? He's been having like undercard matches and looking really good, but they have not put him into a program or anything like that. But I believe at Rebellion, he was on the pre-show in a trios match, and he looked awesome. And then he came back for singles. I do not know if he was at the Albany tapings. I don't remember, and one of you guys in the chat might be able to correct the record there. I do not remember. Oh, hold on. Actually, the Swink is in the chat. He's already answering the question. He says, Leon Slater worked the Countdown to Rebellion in a 6-man. Slater is on Impact next week against Alan Angels. Well, there you go. Thank you, Swink. And of course, he's correcting the record about the Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin match is next Thursday for Prestige Wrestling, and that show is on IWTV. But Josh Alexander will not be there for that match. Somebody is filling in for him. So hold on. Swig of coffee for the Swink. All right. Oh, yes. So yeah, Alexander's hurt. Hopefully he's back. Hammerstone got hurt also, but he should be back here pretty soon. Now the next story I want to get into is Nic Nemeth. And I think what I'll do is I'll actually do a present screen here. That way you guys can just read this along with me. So if you don't have access to the Observer, sometimes there's ways to get it. But okay. So in a match that was made at an angle on night 1, so we're talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling. So night 1 of the latest tour of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Nic Nemeth defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi to retain the global title. And then the next night, they made the match in an angle on night 1. Then the next night, David Finlay beat Nemeth to win the global title in a very well-worked match. The fact that this wasn't advertised nor made until the last minute will lead to speculation that Nemeth, being the AAA Mega Champion, could have played a factor in this, as New Japan would never want their number 2 champion also being champion in AAA, the rival to CMLL, which New Japan has worked with for years. And then shortly after I think that was the next day. I think it was the next day. Nemeth then took to Twitter and said that he was essentially thanking New Japan, which led me to believe that he might be done in Japan. He might be. I don't know. I don't know if he is booked for resurgence or not. But him taking to Twitter and saying thank you New Japan very much seemed like it was spelling the end of Nic Nemeth in Japan. And if so, that's a shame. That sucks. But look, New Japan wants nothing to do with AAA. And I think at one point FTR held the IWGP titles and the AAA tag team titles at the same time. But, AEW stars can get away with more just because New Japan was really wanting that AEW relationship to work. And of course, they got the forbidden door. So there's like monetary reasons as to why they would overlook certain things. But with Nic Nemeth, he's really good, but he's just Nic Nemeth. It's not like a big deal, right? And so they put the title on him thinking that he would bring over new fans, bring it 20 years on WWE TV, but that just didn't happen. In fact, I think New Japan fans kind of have been resenting it because, they're bringing in, they brought in Nemeth and they brought in Riddle and they're bringing in Ali. Nemeth and Riddle won titles right away, but they're not full-time guys. So they're coming in, working shows here and there, holding titles that they feel like their full-time guys should be wearing, should be holding. And they took some heat for it, which is why, they have gotten the titles off of them rather quickly, Like Riddle lost the TV title like very quickly. He lost it to Zack Sabre Jr. here recently, and then Zack Sabre obviously just lost it to Jeff Cobb. So they're kind of revolting there. And Nic Nemeth being the AAA Mega champion seems like it would be good for TNA, but I don't know. Like they have a relationship, and they're sending some TNA stars to the latest version of Triple Mania. How many Triple Manias does AAA have? I thought that was like their annual event, but I think this might be like their third event so far this year that says Triple Mania on it. But he defeated Alberto Del Rio, asshole Del Rio, for that title in a crappy match. And maybe New Japan just didn't want anything to do with any of it. So, but it makes sense that New Japan was like, okay, yeah, we don't want you holding the AAA title, so we're going to take this title off of you. And then he just seems like he's done. But that could be good news for TNA because the reason why he missed the Under Siege tapings, like he missed Under Siege and the tapings, is because he was in Japan. He had that prior booking in Japan. Because he's still not a TNA contracted talent. He's a per date guy. But if anybody thinks that he's going to be leaving anytime soon, TNA is doing him the solid of booking his shitty brother. The Nemeth brothers have invaded Impact. His brother Ryan has now, not only was he at Rebellion and was a part of an angle, he was also at Under Siege, the Under Siege tapings, and he got involved with an angle with Matt Hardy this week on Impact. And next week on Impact, he's actually wrestling in a match. He's doing the one thing that he should never do, which is wrestle. Because he is not a good wrestler. He's getting opportunities because of who his brother is, and I get it. He was with AEW for years because I think he was just like carrying the Young Bucks bags or something like that. But they kept him around as the Hollywood hunk, and he was doing jobs on Dark and things like that. But he's just a geek, probably a really nice guy. But it's very clear that TNA covets the relationship with Nic Nemeth so much that they're bringing in his brother, and they're actually like kind of pushing the guy a little bit. I think he's got a tag match where his partner's Broken Matt, and they're taking on the System coming up in Kentucky. I think they just announced that. So, yeah, the Nemeth brothers have invaded. It would not shock me if the Nemeth brothers went into Slammiversary as the number one contenders to the TNA tag team titles. Would not shock me at all. My original prediction, because I just don't think Broken Matt's going to win the title against all odds. But there's been a lot of talk and a lot of smoke about Jeff Hardy possibly leaving AEW and coming into TNA. And I think that would be good for Jeff. I think AEW just needs to get out of that relationship. I just don't think Jeff has any value to them, and honestly, he's probably more of a liability. And he's a liability in TNA too. Don't get me wrong, but I think he adds value. And I get it. Like, yeah, he's a drunk, not a malcontent, but he's a drunk, and he's always in some type of trouble. You can't trust the guy. But with TNA, it's just like it's fine. But with AEW, he's actually like a real liability there. So, but I thought the Hardy brothers would be facing the System at Slammiversary, but who knows what's going to happen with Jeff. I think that's an unpredictable thing. If AEW lets him go, it would not shock me for WWE to just bring him right back. So now I'm done with that prediction, although I still think it's a possibility. I think right now we're going to head into Slammiversary with the Nemeth brothers challenging for the tag titles against the System. I think it's a real possibility. And Swink in the chat says Nemeth brothers about to take those World Tag Team title belts from the System. I don't know if they take the belts, because I think they're trying to do their Bloodline and Cody story in TNA. You notice how the System is like super strong. Like Under Siege, I would have absolutely had Matt Hardy get the pin over one of the members of the System, especially if we're going to give him a title shot. I would not have him lose in his first match, and of course it's TNA, so he lost in his first match. But he didn't take the pin, so he's they're keeping him strong in their lore, right? In their universe, he is still strong. Makes no sense to me, but that's just TNA booking, right? Like, oh, well, he wasn't the one that got pinned. Well, he's a bad teammate then. But regardless, so they're still going with Moose and Matt Hardy against all odds. I would have had Matt Hardy get the pin, not over Moose, because they're keeping Moose extra strong, but he could have pinned Eddie or Myers, and they would have been fine. But they're keeping them strong, right? I don't think any of them have lost since the group has been formed, right? So they're like, as far as a group of heels, they're like the strongest group of heels. They're not drawing anything. Interest in the company is way down. They had 450 fans at Under Siege, so it's not like act like this whole thing is working. But let's just say, for the story, for the sake of storylines, they're the strongest like faction, and they're the strongest heels that they've had in a long time. They're just not losing, and they're not exactly chicken shit heels either. They're kind of like they're taking on all comers as heels, so they're strong heels. So I think they're going to keep them strong, and I think kind of like they did with the Bloodline, and I think at Hard to Kill 2025, Nemeth is going to defeat Moose, a non-contracted guy who would go back to WWE in a heartbeat, or he would take an AEW deal in a heartbeat. But I think that's who they're focusing on. I think that he is like their guy. So let's see. Fun fact, this is from Dragonstorm1234. Fun fact, if Nick and Ryan do win the belts, they're the second set of brothers to win the tag titles. Only the Hardys have done it before. Sir, are you trying to say that Bubba Ray Dudley and Devon Dudley, or Bully Ray and Brother Devon or Brother Ray and Brother Devon are not brothers? How dare you? You disgust me. No, that's actually true. Because I don't think they Dragonstorm. Maybe you can correct me. I don't think Generation Me, Young Bucks, when they were in TNA, I don't think they ever won the tag titles, did they? I know they were in matches with Motor City Machine Guns for the titles, but I don't think they ever won. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right about that one. So yeah, that actually tracks, that they would only be the second brothers behind the Hardy brothers to actually win the TNA tag titles. The Swink says the last match the System lost was to Okada and Motor City Machine Guns in January. Yeah, actually that is right. I forgot about that. Let's see. IO Productions, you left out Penta and Phoenix. There you go. See, look. All right. So yeah, the Lucha Brothers, in fact, when they were in TNA, were the Impact Wrestling back then, but they were the tag team champions, and Pentagon was the world champion for half a set of tapings. He won it at the whatever they call it, was Redemption. He won a 3-way at Redemption, and then like the next night at the tapings, drop the title back to Austin Aries. But so yeah, so there you go. So the only brother tag team so far in TNA history to ever win the tag titles are the Hardys and the Lucha Brothers. And Jen Me never won the belts. In fact, they only won 3 matches as a team in TNA. So there you go. Wonder why they left. I wonder why they left. David Hadley in the chat said, "How are you, Mike? I started working inside the prison on Monday. Miss catching you and JD on Thursdays, but bedtimes, yeah, man. Hey, look, sorry that you can't join us live. Work and money is far more important than anything that we're doing on our show. But always feel free to catch us on YouTube afterwards, or if you want to become a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/Mike and JD show, and you can get the audio ad free. Voices of Wrestling adds in a bunch of commercials to our stuff, and it's like sponsored. They send us like a quarterly dividend for that stuff. So, but if you want to really support the show, go to patreon.com/the Mike and JD show, and you can get the audio immediately before everybody else gets it. If you're not a YouTube guy, you can get the audio, and same thing with this. So, you guys are watching this on YouTube for free, but if you want it ad free, if you're not a YouTube premium subscriber, and you just like the audio, you don't really care to see my stupid face, which I understand. I respect that. Just go to Patreon, and the only way to get the audio is through the Patreon. I don't upload it anywhere else. The Voices of Wrestling don't get it. It's not monetized like that. It's just only for Patreon subscribers. So, yeah. All right, guys. Let's see. Do we have any other notes for TNA? Oh, one thing I did want to make mention of is Rosemary. Believe it or not, Rosemary is about to go back to AAA. She is a part of the big Triple Mania thing coming up, which is wild because if you guys remember, it was, I think, 2017 when Jeff Jarrett was still in charge of TNA. This was before the Callis and D'Amore regime took over. He took Rosemary to AAA, and she wrestled in a match. It was probably like a garbage match. It was with Sexy Star, and Sexy Star, the original Sexy Star, actually injured her, like shot on her during the match and injured her pretty bad, like blew her knee out or something like that. It was wild too, and a lot of people were mad. Like Sexy Star was like banned from a lot of places. She ended up leaving that company. She went to MMA, and then since then, AAA has had a they created a new Sexy Star, who I don't know who it is, but not the same person, not as good either. I think the original Sexy Star was actually pretty good. Like I just remember her from Lucha Underground. I always thought she was pretty good. So, yeah, but she's actually going back to AAA, which is wild to me. I just never thought that would happen. So, that's and it's of course it's one of the Triple Mania, deals. But let's go ahead and get into this. This Impact taping. Hold on, actually, you guys are correcting people, man. I love that you guys have a good memory because I do not. Ohio versus everything. Dave and Jake Christ also brother tagged. So man, Dragonstorm, these guys are tearing you apart tonight or today. OVE, Dave and Jake Christ were tag team champions, and so were the Briscoe brothers. People forget about the small run that the Briscoe brothers had in between their Ring of Honor and AEW runs. A lot of people forget about that. They did win the tag team titles. They were in just for a couple of tapings. They were awesome. I was so excited to have the Briscoes in TNA. I remember covering them. They did some really good stuff. I think they made their debut like WrestleMania weekend against the Good Brothers, and then they ended up coming in for a few tapings. I think they wrestled through Slammiversary, and then all of a sudden they just went right back to AEW because AEW had just bought Ring of Honor, but WBD, they did not want anything to do with the Briscoes, and so they so they were just working indies. I think they did some shots for NWA too, and then eventually Tony Khan signed them to just Ring of Honor, and they were not allowed to be on AEW TV. and until of course the untimely death of Jay Briscoe. So, but yeah, people forget about that really cool run that they had in Impact in between the Ring of Honor and AEW runs. That was wild. Yeah, it was on that year where they were tag champions everywhere: Impact, NWA, GCW, and Ring of Honor. Yeah, yep, absolutely. Swink corrects the record. It says NWA never put the tag belts on them. NWA probably never did because they knew that their focus was elsewhere. All right. So let's go ahead and get to this week's Undersea show. I thought it was a pretty good show for the most part. There was a significant low light. No, unfortunately, it was something was really bad on the show, and I'll get to that. But the show started with a recap of Under Siege, highlighting Alicia Edwards winning the Knockouts tag titles, with Masa Slamovich, Mustafa Ali retaining the X Division title over Ace Austin and the System defeating House Hardy in the main event, leading into the opening video. And then you had the Albany Fire cheerleaders. So these are the Arena Football League, the Arena Football team there. Adorned the stage as ring announcer introduced the System as they headed to the ring for their first championship celebration. Of course, it didn't take too long before Matt Hardy interrupted them. So Moose took the mic and said he's played in a lot of great teams, but the System is the greatest team ever. Eddie Edwards said that they walked into Under Siege as champions, but his ride or die Alicia won gold, and Alicia may be the greatest knockout tag champion of all time. I think he actually called her the greatest knockout of all time, which should elicit some heat. But yes, as I said, broken Matt Hardy interrupted them, his music, and he made his way to the ring. He had a microphone and a chair. He understood the System and knows what he must do to render the Moose obsolete. Alicia interrupted, and Matt then called her a snow witch and implied that Rebecca Hardy may show up. Matt really wants his wife involved in this, and it's only a matter of time before the rest of House Hardy is involved. But if you're bringing in Matt Hardy into TNA, you want the full ensemble, right? I want the dilapidated boat. Okay. I want Vanguard 1 or whatever number we're Vanguard right now. I want his father-in-law. What was his father-in-law's name? Oh gosh, he was so funny. I cannot remember the father-in-law's name. I want the giraffe. I want the kids. I want the whole thing. And we have not gotten it yet, and I keep waiting for it. It's about time that they get that done. Yeah, thank you, Io. Senior Benjamin. Senior Benjamin ruled. I almost bought a Senior Benjamin t-shirt when that whole thing was going on. I love that guy. He was so great. Oh, swig of coffee for Senior Benjamin. But yeah, we need the whole thing. Hold on, I lost my spot. Yeah, and then Moose said that there's 4 of them and only one of Matt. Matt responded by swinging a steel chair they brought with them. Alicia hit Hardy with the kendo stick, which allowed the System to take control. And as they're beating him up, Ryan Nemeth made the save, and the System bailed. Okay, so I thought this was going okay. I love the Broken Matt character, and I'm obviously a fan of the System. I thought the brawling was a bit weak because they just kept running into Matt's chair. So I just didn't think it looked good. I just didn't think it was executed very good. But then Ryan Nemeth, of all people, maybe it's the fact that I know who this guy is, and I know that he's a bit of a geek, and you just can't do anything with him because he's not good in the ring. Him making the save, I was just like, oh, it's Ryan Nemeth. It's the Hollywood hunk. It's the guy that used to do jobs on AEW Dark. And he was during the pandemic, he was one of the guys always sitting in the crowd. It's cheering people on. He was one of those guys. But he made the save, so and then of course they did the cheerleaders then did the delete gesture to end the segment. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was funny. And then we go backstage. Jim Miller interviewed ABC, who said that ABC will face Speedball Mountain tonight, and the winning team will face each other for a future X Division title shot. Ace Austin said that he would already have been champion if Chris Bay was at ringside at Under Siege, teasing further dissension between the two. Yeah, it's only a matter of time before ABC breaks up. But here's the question. Who goes heel? Who goes heel? I think that is going to be interesting because I think Ace Austin is better as a heel. He spent the majority of his run here as a heel. He's never been a babyface single before, but he's better as a heel. Chris Bay, also better as a heel. And Chris Bay also teased potentially joining up with First Class with Rich Swann and AJ Francis. And I think that he would fit in pretty well there. With that hip hop mogul culture, Chris Bay does, he actually does music and stuff like that. And so I think he would fit in there. And I think he's a better tag team partner for Rich Swann than AJ Francis is. And I'm pretty sure AJ Francis at this upcoming Kentucky taping is going to be winning the Digital Media Championship. So he's probably going to be moving on from the tag team, and he's going to be the Digital Media Champion. And then I could see Chris Bay and Rich Swann, going for the tag gold eventually when some baby faces win it. But it's going to be interesting because, sometimes they do surprise you and kind of switch it up on you. But yeah, it looks like Ace Austin's getting ready to do the babyface run. And AJ Francis is going to start manipulating Chris Bay, but we'll see. And then Santana Marella was backstage and interrupted the system, who asked him to do his job. All right. And Marella said he's there to make a huge announcement and to stay tuned. And then we get First Class. They defeat FBI. I'm going to say it again, guys. I like this FBI. I like them. I think they're good. Ray Jazz and Zach Clayton. I know that they're green, right? They're not the Midnight Express, so everybody's like, calm down. I'm not saying anything like that. But I think they could have something with them. I think what they need to do is they need to dress Guido in kind of like a mafioso outfit versus just wearing like a FBI t-shirt or an FBI jersey. I think that they need to like kind of dress him up a little bit and make him like a legit manager. Because I just don't think we should need to see like, 50 some odd Guido in the ring ever again, unless it's like a special thing where they like the culmination of a feud or something like that. And the babyface need to get heat on the manager. Like, I think he could do that, but I like the whole act, but yeah, they got a choke slam, and then Swann hit the frog splash for a victory. Nice showcase match for First Class. Jake Something was backstage with Santino, but it's interrupted again by the Rascals. And Morella said that if they wanted action, then they would be the Rascals against Jake Something. So that's how they make matches. You just bump into each other backstage or interrupt someone's interview. All right, guys, log off right now because I don't need any evidence of what I'm about to say. And I don't need any of you guys holding this one against me or using it later for jokes. And I really want you guys to be adults about this and be adults about what I'm about to say. Khan and Steph DeLander were on Alan Angels' talk show. And the interview went downhill quickly. And Alan Angels was getting on Khan's nerves. And he's sitting on a box, like an equipment box that was on wheels. And Khan just pushed his equipment box away. And I laughed so hard. It's like, and then I got mad at myself because Khan did something entertaining. I'm supposed to keep the gimmick alive of hating everything he does. You know, like how Eric Bischoff hates everything that Dave Meltzer does and says and like tries to disagree with him, even though he agrees with him. Like that, I'm trying to like keep my hatred of Khan alive, and he's ruining it by doing something funny, by pushing Alan Angels away. And Alan Angels is pretty funny. He is. I think he's like a good comedy character. I think he's starting to find his niche in pro wrestling. It's not like the guy who has really good matches. It's he's like a little shithead. He's like an annoying little shithead that thinks he's a lot cooler than he is, and then he can't get girls. And part of the segment was like he thought that SDL and Khan were boyfriend and girlfriend. And she's like, "It's not my boyfriend." And he goes, "Oh, you're single." And then he got mad at Khan for getting jealous, and then Khan pushed his box away. I thought this whole thing was pretty funny. And I go, "Oh, look, I'm very clearly I'm not proud of it." Okay. So don't go clipping this and showing people. Don't go showing Yellowbone, who's like he's a Khan truther. That's his gimmick. He's like he saw that everybody railing against Khan, so he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna be on Twitter being a Khan truther. So don't do that. All right. But that was pretty funny. And then the Rascals defeated Jake Something and Cody Deaner. They towards the end there, Trey Miguel sprayed spray paint into Jake Something's eyes, and then they got the victory on Deaner. Jake Something obviously was very impressive in the match. I think next week they're going to start doing another story with Jake something, and it might get interesting. But every time we think we're going to get behind them, they just don't. They cut his legs off. So we'll see if what they're doing next week works. Post match, Steve Macklin took out the Rascals. So is Macklin going babyface? I don't know. Or is he doing a tweener thing? I think that's going to be interesting. Hold on, swig of coffee for Steve. Backstage, Macklin and Kazarian bickered as Kazarian said the issues between them and Josh Alexander and Eric Young were not over. Macklin begged to differ. So Macklin's doing his own thing. He's not working with the Kazarian. And then one of the highlights of the show for me happens next. Tom Hannafin interviewed Mike Santana, who said his return to TNA was a long time coming and he calls TNA home. Hannafin said that many fans know Santana is a member of LAX. Santana said that that was his first experience on television. Hannafin asked Santana what has happened to him since leaving TNA. He said that he lost his father during his time away from the company, and the pandemic happened, so a lot of issues came to surface. Hannafin said that it was public knowledge that Santana made the decision to go sober, and that's kind of where they cut it off. Santana said that he had to save his life, and it was to be continued. I thought this was very strong. I really, really do think they got something with Santana. I think he's going to be a star for these guys. We got we got some really good options for baby faces. You should take the title off of Moose. Last week I was really pumping up Joe Hendry, and he was again on the charts this week. And then, very clearly I'm an admirer of Steve Macklin. There's always Josh Alexander. And then you also got Santana. Ultimately they're going to go with the WWE guy, but I think they have some really good options right now. And Santana is just one of those options. All right. Now here's where the show goes off a cliff. Gabby LaSpiza, she used to be on Busted Open Radio, was in the ring. She looked like, Christopher Moltisante's girlfriend in The Sopranos. That she looks just like her. I can't remember what her name is, but so she's in the ring and she's doing the interview with Ash by Elegance, and this thing just lasted forever. And I was just in a Discord chat on the Voices of Wrestling Discord saying that I like Ash the character, but her matches stink. But I think that the character is funny. And then she came out and nothing was funny. Nothing was interesting. Nothing was entertaining. It just lasted forever. And I'm just like, what are we doing? She's got to go. I know I come on here and I talk about how they need more knockouts because the division is in dire straits. Which I think Marty Bell is coming in for the tapings next, and they just had Allie Catch, which hopefully she's not coming back. She's not any good either. But they got Marty Bell coming in next week, which without Sienna, I just don't know if you want Marty Bell. I like the act with Sienna, like the Hex act. That's pretty cool. But Marty Bell, I'm just not interested. Maybe she'll surprise me and do something good, but there's good talent out there. They should watch NWA. Like BQ talks about it every week. They should watch NWA. They got a lot of green talent out there that they could bring in and kind of groom them and cultivate them. But no, they went with Dana Brooke, who's who's been around for 10, 15 years, never been over, and has not improved in the ring. And she just had one of the all-time worst segments I've ever seen on TNA. And that's covering a lot of ground because they've had some doozies on this show. But this was tough, man. The show just fell off a cliff at this point. The already silent crowd, I think a lot of them just left. But so Ash was helped into the ring and took a microphone. Gabby wanted to clarify the meaning of Ash by Elegance. And plus, okay, look, to their credit, they had no good material to work with either. Ash said that Elegance is a lifestyle brand. Gabby said that she had not heard of that. Ash said that she was the interview was the most classist that she's ever done. Gabby apologized and sent it to the video wall, which showed Ash taking out Havoc at Under Siege. Gabby also showed footage of Zaya Brookside defeating Ash a couple weeks ago. And then Zaya Brookside comes out to no ovation whatsoever. Nobody cared. And we're going to do a third match because Zaya Brookside has to have 3 matches with everybody. She had her She had her 3 with Tasha Steeles, and now she's going into a 3-match series with Dana Brooke or whatever, Ash by Botox, whatever you guys want to call it. God, this was awful. This was terrible. Let's see. Let's go to the chat real quick. Eric Isaac says, might we see Ash versus Rosemary? So with Ash doing the same damage to Rosemary like she did to Havoc. Before Decay will get their revenge at the Slammiversary in July, since Decay will be in Mexico next month. That's right. Yeah, Decay. So I talked about Rosemary going to Mexico. I think Havoc's going to be with her. So I guess they could do it. Yeah, it makes sense that Ash would wrestle Rosemary, but I maybe liking the TV tapings or something like that. Alex Windsor, she's on New Japan tonight. Yeah, she's at I think it's called Resurgence tonight. She's really good. I think she was on TNA when they went to the UK last year. And I believe that's Will Ospreay's significant other, but she just doesn't want to leave the UK. So she's just somebody you just wouldn't be able to get full time. You probably get some dates on her, but you couldn't get a ton. But I think that if they can get dates on her, they should, because she's very good. But she's got a son, and she's not going to move her son from the UK to the States. That's why Will Ospreay signed with AEW, because he's like, I'm not leaving my girlfriend and my stepson. You know what I mean? Which is I think admirable. And then a video package detailing Joe Henry's surge up the music charts. He's been getting a lot of play. He's been all over BBC Radio in multiple countries over there, because BBC plays like all over the UK. And he was like on Scotland, BBC Scotland or whatever. And he's getting a lot of play, man. This guy's getting over. And they need to, if they're not going to give him like the world title, and I think he's wrestling Eddie Edwards coming up at the Cincinnati tapings next week. If they're not going to give him like a world title shot or give him the title, then I think it's time that they actually create not a digital media title. Digital media is a joke. They need to create like a secondary championship that could like main event some premium live events, like a UK title or whatever, like the global title like New Japan has, or international title like AEW has. I think it's time, because you're not going to put Joe Hendry. You're not going to put guys like Joe Hendry and Steve Macklin and Hammerstone and Jake Something. Like Jake Something did go for the X Division title, but I just don't think he, I think he should stick with the heavyweights. You're not going to put those guys in the X Division, so they need something to fight for. And I think it's been more than enough time that they need to get that secondary championship. But Santino announced the Champions Challenge for next week. It looks like one of the GCW Cluster Fs. So the champions side consists of Moose, Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, Alicia Edwards, Masha Slamovich, Jordan Grace, Mustafa Ali, and Laredo Kid versus the All-Stars of Matt Hardy, Steph DeLander, Sammy Calrihan, Eric Young. Ryan Nemeth is already an All-Star. He's actually just filling in for Josh Alexander. Spitfire and Joe Hendry. So there you go. Steph DeLander, as BQ pointed out, is 0-3 versus Jordan Grace, but she's going to have another opportunity. And then, of course, Spitfire, who already has a championship rematch clause, they're getting the championship rematch anyway. They're going to be in the match, just to, maybe they can get another championship. Jonathan Gresham comes out in his Muto, Keiji Muto, or the great Muta gear. He defeated Will Ferrara. He's trying, man. He started spitting up ink again, but he didn't do like the Papa Shango style where he was like through the whole match, like coughing up ink. It was like when he had him in the octopus, he spit ink onto his hand and then applied the mandible claw. So that's way better than what we saw at Under Siege. They dialed it back a little bit. I don't think I'm interested though. We'll see. Maybe he picks it up a notch, but I don't know, man. I just at this point I'm not feeling it. But he seems to be into the character. He's like going all in. So if he goes all in and then it eventually gets over, I'll shut up. I'm happy to be wrong about this one, but it's hard to make a first impression, right? You don't get another shot at that. And the first impression Under Siege, where he's doing the Papa Shango coughing up stuff throughout the match, was weak sauce. It was cheeseball stuff. So we'll see. And then Mustafa Ali entered the arena to join the announce team. And then we go to the main event, which I thought was a hell of a main event. It's too bad the audience was sitting on their hands the entire time, except for, like I said, the 5 people that were the same 5 guys that show up to every show doing the Speedball Mountain, Dueling Chance, Speedball Mountain ABC. There was just way too much to cover in this match because a lot happened. It really was a very good match. I thought it was a fantastic TV main event. I thought the overall television show was pretty good. But I think they already have the main event like clipped for YouTube. So if you're just gonna watch one thing, I would just watch the main event. ABC looked to finish, but they were cut off by stereo dives to the outside from Bailey and 7. Bailey hit the tornado kick on Bay and went to the top, but was pushed off to the floor by Austin, who followed up with the Fosbury flop to the outside. Ollie applauded at the announce desk, was distracted Austin. Bay went to the finish in the ring, but was cut off and sent from the ring. Austin, back in the ring, was hit with a Birmingham hammer from 7 and the ultimate weapon from Bailey for the win. 7 and Bailey will now face each other for a one-on-one for a future X Division title shot. So I think future means against all odds, and we're gonna close here in a minute. But if they're gonna do the Speedball versus Mustafa Ali match at Against All Odds and not Slammiversary, that's a huge mistake. And in fact, if they can hold it off, or if they do an angle at Against All Odds in Chicago that leads to Slammiversary, I'm okay. But the money is Speedball versus Ali in Montreal, in that beautiful venue, the Verdun Auditorium, like a historic venue. That's where the money's at. I really do think that if they put Speedball in the main event with Mustafa Ali, not Josh and Moose, Speedball and Mustafa Ali has some momentum. He really does. He's he's a guy, okay? And Speedball is very good, but it's Montreal. And Montreal fans, I'll say what you want about them. They support their own. When Sami Zayn goes to Montreal, like, they show out and they get loud. Okay. Kevin Owens, same way. And the same they used to do for the Rougeau brothers, especially Jacques Rougeau, who was like a major attraction there. Jacques Rougeau beat Hollywood Hogan. Legit. And when they were in WCW, they did a show in Montreal, and you can find it on YouTube. And Jacques Rougeau defeated Hulk Hogan during the NWO era. And they put him on top because they knew if you put a Montreal guy on top, it's going to draw. And you know who's back in the wrestling scene? Obviously not as a wrestler because he's in his 70s, but Rick Martel. You could probably, and he's been doing like autograph signings and stuff like that. I think that you can get Rick Martel. Obviously, PCO is going to be on the show. He'll probably be in a garbage match, and that's perfect for him. He'll be in some type of street fight. But you put Speedball on top. And you can bring in like Rick Martel to second him, you know what I mean? Or to like walk him to the ring, or be like the special guest timekeeper, you know, something like that, right? You could bring out Jacques Rougeau, who's touring around the Canadian Indies right now and doing autograph shows, sometimes as Jacques and sometimes as the Mountie. You could bring him. You really could sell a lot of tickets to that show if they follow the path of what major productions have done in Montreal in the past. And you bring out the Montreal legends. They respect their legends so much there. And they respect their local talent so much. They follow them, they support them, and they will show up. They will break whatever record they had at Hard to Kill. They'll fly right by it if they do that. Because in the Verdun Auditorium, it's the 5,000 seat arena. They could probably, you know, they could set it up for 2,500 and sell it out if they did that easily. But yeah, look, this was I thought this was a good show, but the Ash by Elegance thing was just that died. That one died a slow death. But for the most part, I thought this was a pretty good episode. And then we got the big cluster F next week, and we'll find out who wins on that, and then which will lead to a title shot at Against All Odds coming up in Chicago. But hey guys, I really appreciate everybody being in the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you for checking out this free preview of Brace for Impact. I really do appreciate it. Make sure, if you want to check this show out next week, make sure that you are a Patreon subscriber. Head to patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show. Every Saturday morning around this time, sometimes 6 a.m. Hawaii time, sometimes 6:37. So I've gone as late as 8 a.m. Hawaii time. But I'll pop the link in Patreon, and then I'll start getting set up, and I'll give everybody a head start, and then they can come in and join the show. And then then I clip the show typically, and I start releasing clips, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then eventually I just unlock the whole episode for everybody. But if you want it right away and you want to be interactive and be a part of it, become a Patreon subscriber. It's $5 a month. Patreon.com/the Mike and JD Show. You get the audio right away, video right away, and the audio, of course, is always ad free. So I really do appreciate it, guys. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody joining, and of course, thanks to all the Patreon subscribers. And until next time, mahalo.